Good evening, everyone. So usually I just start with a little introductory talk, and then we'll meditate for about 20 or 25 minutes or so, and then I'll do another brief talk for about 15 to 20 minutes after that. Then I usually leave some time for questions. So feel free to ask any questions. If I ask questions during my talk, feel free to chime in, or you can just listen. So we'll start with just some questions, and some of this was on my meetup page. What is the essence of your being? What is the foundation of consciousness? What is the part of you that makes decisions and controls your body? What do we call that? Is it something material or something else? These are questions about fundamental aspects of our existence that most of us understand very little about. Science is just starting to scratch the surface of these questions, and there's very little consensus about the answers amongst the experts. Neuroscientists assume it all comes from the brain, but no one has been able to identify the material requirements to produce consciousness. So perhaps consciousness is not a product of certain material conditions. We also face similar challenges when we try to understand the fundamental aspects of our universe. In quantum physics, we can't even predict the location of a particle within a wave of light. We can only offer probability, and we can't fully determine its location until after it's observed. This implies that the act of observing actually affects the fabric of reality. With this type of evidence, you could argue that this means consciousness is a necessary ingredient for producing physical reality, and not vice versa. When I look at the research, it seems that there's a fair amount of evidence to suggest that this might be the truth. Philosophically, it's impossible to prove that reality exists beyond our own subjective experience of it. After much questioning about the nature of reality, this is how the philosopher René Descartes arrived at his base understanding of truth: I think, therefore I am. Through his reasoning, he couldn't prove anything to himself beyond that. And from what I've observed, I would argue that thinking being a prerequisite for existence is a little bit of a stretch. I would probably reduce that statement to simply say that there is existence. Anything beyond that could just be the result of thinking. In truth, there's no way to prove to ourselves that the reality we perceive is not just in our imagination. I think this is hard for people to grasp sometimes, and I get that. From my own observations, I think there's plenty of evidence to suggest that reality exists outside of my own imagination. If this is all in my imagination, then how come I can't control everything that happens? Why would I imagine so many different things that cause me suffering? All of my experiences suggest that I share this world with other conscious things. Have you ever felt an internal connection to someone else or nature itself? Why do we feel this? Through my meditation, I've become aware that consciousness runs throughout everything. However, I have no objective way to prove this to you. From your own observations, has anyone ever felt a sense of oneness with nature or a connection to the universe? Or a sense that you're part of something bigger? Most people I ask this question to say yes. So it seems that there's an overwhelming amount of anecdotal evidence that suggests this might be true. So how can you experience this connection? You have to put down your sense of I. This is your sense of self, or what we can call ego. Using the word I can create a perception that your consciousness is restricted to your body. With all of the contrary evidence we have, I believe it's worthwhile to question that assumption. So I think it can be a good exercise to put down your ego. Admit that there are certain things we don't fully understand, and keep seeking the truth beyond the shadow of doubt. So far, collectively, we've been unable to rely on our external observations to be able to fully understand our consciousness. So what are our options? How do we find the answer to these questions that go beyond the reach of science and our knowledge? I suggest we should turn our attention and focus inwards. That's why we meditate in Zen practice. In Zen, these types of questions are called koans. They're meant to challenge the linear thought process. They're the seeds that we plant in our mind before we meditate. If you're unable to find the answer through science, logic, and contemplation, I suggest asking yourself the question and then use meditation to completely clear your mind. This is like clearing the weeds from the soil before you plant a seed in the garden. You can use this process when linear thinking reaches its limits. Then you can see what sprouts up when you plant a seed and completely clear your mind. Tonight, I'd like you to try to understand your mind and the essence of your being. Ask yourself, what makes you who you are? When we meditate, just try to clear your mind of all thoughts, including the idea of I. Try to experience what remains when your mind is completely empty. Before we meditate, let's begin with a breathing technique that can help you relax and prepare your body for meditation. Start by breathing a little bit slower and a little bit deeper than you usually do. Visualize your heart in the center of your chest as you breathe. As you listen to me, I want you to slow down your breath a little bit more and breathe a little bit deeper. Feel your breath coming in through your nose and mouth, collecting all of the energy from your brain and moving it from your head into your heart. Imagine now that you're breathing with your heart. The purpose of this is to try to align our mind, heart, and body. You can also place your hand on your heart and close your eyes if you'd like. Keep breathing a little bit slower and a little bit deeper as I talk. This is a technique you can use to relax or reset yourself whenever you feel nervous or anxious, or whenever you feel like you need to switch gears from different activities you're doing throughout the day. You can use it when you wake up, before you enter a stressful meeting, before you go to sleep, or before you meditate. So let's just take a few more moments to take some slow and deep breaths. So tonight we'll be doing a mantra meditation. We're going to turn around in the positions we're sitting in, and we'll be sitting with our legs crossed, and you want your right hands, left hands touching your thumbs, centered in your lap. Try to keep your neck and back straight, and we'll meditate with our eyes closed, but if they were open, they'd be at a 45-degree angle looking at the floor. You can also do this if you're sitting at home, sitting on the edge of your chair with your feet flat on the floor. Just try not to lean back on the back of your chair. If you get uncomfortable during the meditation, you can stretch or stand up. Just try to be quiet and respectful of everyone else meditating around you. In traditional Zen meditation, a mantra is used to clear the mind. The mantra is the focal point of meditation, usually a word or a phrase that's repeated within your mind. If you try not to think, thoughts will inevitably come into your mind. When you meditate, try to let go of your feelings, opinions, desire, and ego. As you meditate, only concentrate on your mantra. If any thought comes into your mind, let it pass and return to focusing on your mantra. You can use anything as a mantra during meditation, but I usually suggest using the mantra of Koan Bosal. Koan Bosal is the name of the bodhisattva of love and compassion in Korean Zen. She's often depicted with thousands of eyes and hands, and is said to be able to see the suffering of everyone and help those who call out her name. Using this mantra will bring compassionate energy towards you while you meditate. Drawing compassionate energy towards you is like giving water to your seed. So now we'll just stand up, and I'll have you just turn around in your spots and return to that sitting position. I'm going to face the wall. And we'll meditate for about 20 minutes. So, in Zen and Buddhism, we try to understand the Dharma. And the Dharma is the truth inherent in nature. When I talk about Dharma in a class like this, I do it using words. But please keep in mind, words can only ever be an approximation of the truth. At best, my words might help point you towards the truth, but they could never provide absolute truth. The truth that I'm trying to help you understand transcends words, and it can't be understood intellectually. It has to be experienced. It's like trying to explain to someone the taste of an apple who's never tasted one. It's nearly impossible to fully describe with words. If I really want to help you understand what an apple tastes like, the most helpful thing I could do is try to compel you to take a bite. Then you could truly understand. Furthermore, nature is always changing, and the truth is always evolving to reflect that. The taste of an apple can change over time. Some apples are ripe, some are not ripe, and others might be rotten. There's also a big difference between a Macintosh apple and a crab apple. Other people can help you understand the difference between these types of apples, but ultimately you are the one who must decide what you eat. This is why, if you really want to understand the truth in nature, you must always observe it with a clear mind. This is why we practice meditation in Zen, so we can keep our mind clear. You can intellectually understand that meditation makes your mind clear, but that won't make your mind clear. If you want to clear your mind, you have to do some form of meditation. That's why in this class, we do some meditation together. It's not just teaching and talking. We try to understand it through doing it and experiencing it. When you work with your hands and touch a lot of different things throughout the day, your hands get dirty. Then you can wash them, and your hands are clean again. Your mind works in much the same way. When you use your mind throughout the day, it gets cluttered with different thoughts and ideas. Then you can use meditation to clear your mind out. If you don't wash your hands frequently, you can spread germs all around. If you don't clear your mind, your thoughts and emotions can contaminate the moment. If you eat an apple with dirty hands, it might taste like the bitter dirt from your hands. If you observe the world with a cluttered mind, it can taint the way you see things. This makes it difficult to see things the way they truly are. Your thoughts, emotions, opinions, and desires can alter the way you see the world and prevent you from seeing the truth. Your perception of the world is completely subjective. No matter how close we stand together, you'll always see things from a slightly different angle than I do. Your perception of the world might be similar to mine, but it can never be the same. We both might even agree that the sky is blue, but there's no way to prove that we're perceiving the same thing. You might see a bright world with different colors, and I might just be seeing different shades of gray that I've learned to identify as colors. Or you could just be having a dream, and I don't even really exist. It's actually impossible to prove that anything exists outside of your own mind. If you think about that too much, it can get very confusing about what reality is. This is why we meditate in Zen, so you can let go of your thinking and focus on seeking the truth. So who are you? What is the essence of your being? If you could completely turn off all of your senses, stop thinking, and clear your mind, what would be left? Emptiness. It's kind of like a black hole. Things go into your mind, but where do they go? Where is your mind? Any ideas? Is it just a neural network of cells and a bunch of chemical reactions? Or does it transcend all of these words? In truth, all of these words come from your mind. When I use the word mind, I don't mean your brain. I mean the essence of your being. You might also call it your heart, your soul, your spirit, or consciousness. The thing I'm referring to transcends all of these words in some way. It's very difficult to communicate exactly what it is, but everyone knows they have a mind, even if they don't know what it is. You can also experience your mind through meditation. Everyone's mind is kind of like a black hole. You can assess what's going on inside it by the actions going on outside of it, but you can never really know what's inside. It's like trying to understand what's going on inside a building that you can't go inside. You can look at the sign on the outside and the people going in and out of the building, and you can deduce what's happening inside, but you can't get any direct observations or proof of what's actually going on inside the building. In physics, they actually do the same thing with black holes. They assess and deduce what might be going on inside with mathematics, but we can't observe the inside because physical light and energy can't escape. So there's nothing to observe. It just appears as emptiness. Looking at a black hole is kind of like looking into someone's eyes, deep into their pupil. Somehow you can get a sense of what's in their mind, but you never really truly know for sure. The mind casts an invisible light, which is bright enough to illuminate the entire universe and all of reality. Every living being is also like a star that asserts detectable forces on the universe. A star radiates energy, light, and warmth, which has an effect on the environment around it. When a star dies, it becomes a black hole. The black hole is not an object. It's a place that exists and appears as a void of emptiness. And yet it still asserts a force of gravity on the universe. It's very similar to when a person dies. All of the actions they took while they were alive had an effect on the world, which create momentum and put things on a certain trajectory. After they die, everything they touched continues on a path which was influenced by the person that is no longer there. This means our minds can assert gravity on the universe similar to a black hole, even after our bodies are gone. It's interesting. I came to this understanding during a meditation after my teacher died. I wrote about it in the memorial poem I wrote for him. I was an engineer for many years before I started studying Zen, so I'm fascinated by the intersection between science and spirituality. Science only deals with material things that can be physically observed. Yet it's always being driven by a mind, which is not a material thing. So the mind is always affecting our scientific experiments in some way. Every scientific experiment requires a mind to make observations, take measurements, and collect data. This means that every scientific experiment requires a source of consciousness in order to do it. The mind and consciousness are variables in every experiment that we don't understand how to account for it in a material way. Most scientific fields explain the universe through the cause and effect of various forms of matter. This can lead you to believe there's a deterministic feature in nature. This process works for the most part until you get down to studying the fabric of reality on the smallest quantum level. Quantum physics studies the level of reality where particles interact. Particles are the tiny building blocks which make up all of the atoms and forms of energy in our universe. When you study this aspect of reality, it starts to get fuzzy, and our ability to predict things by means of cause and effects starts to break down. Light is a foundational form of energy in nature, which is the basis for many of our observations of our world and the universe. Light moves through the universe as a wave, faster than anything else we've ever observed. When we observe light through scientific experiments, it appears as a particle. But we're unable to predict where that particle is until it's observed. After it's been observed or measured, every particle in the universe that has ever interacted with that particle becomes correlated on a quantum level, and that information is somehow transferred to every other particle that it's interacted with in the universe, regardless of how far away it is. It happens instantaneously. This means that the information is transferred faster than the speed of light. This correlation amongst the particles is called quantum entanglement. This phenomena of quantum entanglement has some very interesting implications. It suggests that the very act of observation changes the fabric of reality all across the universe instantaneously. This seems to undermine the idea that things in the universe are predetermined by some material set of conditions. This, to me, suggests that the fabric of reality only becomes fixed as it's observed by a source of consciousness. I would suggest that every time a wave is observed as a particle, it leaves behind a tiny corresponding black hole. What do I mean by that? Once the fabric of reality has been determined through observation, it leaves a series of imaginary possibilities that can only exist in your mind. You could imagine where the particle ended up in a different place or even an alternate universe. Those imaginary scenarios are not reality, but they could still affect your perception of reality if you think about them. All of these possibilities that could have happened only exist in a black hole. That black hole is the realm of your mind. So is this type of thinking real? All of these possibilities are not real in a material sense, but thinking can have an effect on your physical actions. So in that sense, they can still assert a force that affects reality. Much in the same way that a memory of a friend that has passed away can be a source of inspiration and can cause you to do something different in your life. Now, I'm veering away from science into philosophy and spirituality, but I think it could be worthwhile to consider how these realms interact via the mind. According to quantum physics, our observations cause correlation, which is a measurable effect, and it suggests that everything in the universe is entangled. To me, this suggests that the observations by a mind or a source of consciousness is what weaves the fabric of our reality. This implies that the mind is a fundamental part of the fabric of reality, and it may indeed be the foundation of everything. This is essentially what Buddhists have been saying for thousands of years, but they didn't have the scientific technology to prove it. They were able to develop this level of awareness of the universe through meditation practice. If we relied solely on what we were able to deduct about our existence through logic and reasoning, it's possible to conclude that reality is the result of our imagination. However, if that's true, how come we can't bend the universe to our will? The fact that we can't do this suggests that there are other forms of consciousness outside of ourselves making observations which cause correlations and entanglements themselves. If the observations or measurements that trigger correlation are originating from multiple sources, it implies that the entanglement that weaves together the fabric of our universe is actually the product of a shared consciousness. So I apologize if I'm getting a little too deep into the minutiae of science and philosophy, but I think it has important implications on our lives. Today I talked a lot about science, but my original understanding of all these things came through my meditation practice before I knew about the scientific research that supports these ideas. My meditation practice helps me maintain a clear mind, which has given me a heightened sense of my surroundings. In my deepest meditations, I became aware that different forms of consciousness are present within everything. And the reality we live in is the result of shared consciousness. This realization filled my heart with love for everything and everyone. This understanding led me on a path of compassion, simply trying to help other people understand themselves and reduce their own suffering. If we want to alleviate our suffering, we need to better understand ourselves and the reality we live in so that we can make better decisions in our lives. To understand the truth of nature and reality, as well as the nature of truth, we need to help each other understand. We need to share our knowledge and wisdom with each other. This means we need to be compassionate to each other. So, in closing, if I could offer you any advice going forward, I would suggest to you to keep meditating a little bit every day and keep asking yourself these deeper questions about the nature of the world we live in. Be patient with yourself and be compassionate to yourself, and be patient and compassionate with other people. If you keep this practice going through all of the challenges that life throws at you, you can attain enlightenment, and you can help others do the same. I wish you good fortune in your journey, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I know I got into some heavy material. I'm not a quantum physicist, so just a disclaimer. Just fascinated by it. Any questions about anything we went over tonight, or anything else about the mind, the meditation, consciousness?
Thank you for your teaching.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So you have an event that I am going to called like Zen Artists Collective.
Yep.
This coming Saturday. Could you talk about how that intersects with practice for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I call this space the Zen Art Center. So what I'm trying to teach is the relationship between Zen and art and creativity. So in one way, making art, writing, doing something creative, my original art was martial arts. That was the first art I practiced. When you are doing that and you're completely focused on what you're doing, you can reach a flow state. That, when you're completely focused on what you're doing like that, that becomes a form of meditation. Also, your meditation practice, you can use that as a source of inspiration and a source for your creativity. So a lot of people who are creative, they get creative blocks. They don't know what they want to create. They don't know what to write. When you reach a place like that in your life, you can reach that in all different aspects of your life. But when you reach those points where you feel like, I don't know which way to go or which way to turn, or I've come to a wall, I don't know how to overcome this challenge, there's always a direction you can turn. You can sit and you can meditate. And sometimes if you clear your mind and maybe ask yourself, how do I get over this obstacle? But then don't think about it. Just try to clear your mind. Then a different answer might come into your mind, a different way to approach the issue. And then also, with the creative process, creativity and creation is one of the only ways I'm aware of that we can bring what is in our mind out into reality. So in that way, we can learn about our mind. So you get a reflection of whatever was in your mind, you can bring it out into reality, and you can gain some insights about what your mind is through that process. So that's I actually learned much of that through martial arts practice, which seems a little strange to a lot of people. At first, when I started doing it, I didn't understand how it would work either. But I actually just enjoyed the process, and I tried it. And then I started to understand my mind in a different way. So my teacher would say, when you meditate, you clear your mind, which clears out your thinking, and then that makes your actions clear. When you're doing an art form or anything, if you're focused on it, you have clear actions, that clears your thinking, and that clears your mind. So each way, that's a meditation. If you're focused sitting on a mantra, that can clear your mind. But also, if you're doing something completely focused on that, that can become your mantra, and that will clear your mind. And to me, that was something when I started doing meditation that I missed. I don't know, I never heard that lesson until I met my teacher. So I didn't understand, like, okay, I can sit and meditate and I feel pretty good, but then I go out and, someone cuts me off in traffic and I'm mad. Like, why? How do you take that clear mind and carry it through the rest of your life? This is a way you can practice doing that, just by completely focusing on what you're doing and not letting any thinking come between what you're doing. And I think artistic endeavors, writing, martial arts, drawing, painting, it could be, I use the word art to mean anything you put your heart into. So I have a very broad definition. But I think those types of things, when you have a passion towards something, or, an inclination towards something, it makes it much easier to practice really focusing on that thing. And then after you get a lot of practice in and you start to try sitting meditation and that what I call moving meditation, then you can learn how to apply that to even the most mundane parts of your life, like eating, just completely focusing on what you're doing. And then when you do that, you start to learn to apply it to all parts of your life. And then your mind, if you can learn how to do that, then your mind is always clear. So that's a long-winded answer to how I relate the two practices.
I'm excited to try it.
Nice. Well, you don't have to wait for me. You can do it too. But I really, the purpose of the classes, in my mind, is, in this class too, is just to create a community of people who are, interested in exploring this realm of the mind and interested in encouraging each other to be creative and pursue what's in their heart. And because there's a lot of noise in our society about what you should be doing, and a lot of distractions from what may truly your heart might be telling you to do. And so if you're practicing meditation and you're in a group of people that's encouraging you to keep going, and you get, forming a community that is helping each other along that path, that's really the goal of why I wanted to have this little space for everybody. So I really would strongly encourage anybody who wants to be a part of something like that to come to more classes. I have an art class and a writing class. You can come to the art class and do writing. I don't mind. It's just whatever your art form is. The only thing is you have to bring your own materials. I'm not an art teacher or a writing teacher. I will do over a little bit of meditation and kind of explain some of these relationships, trying to unpack some of the kind of questions like you asked tonight. But yeah, that would be kind of the goal of what I'm trying to do with this, and trying to help people make these connections and just learn how to clear your mind. I mean, in Buddhism, my teacher would say, in Zen, when you see your mind, that's getting enlightenment. What does that mean? How do you see your mind? It's really hard to figure that out, but if you clear your mind and you get rid of all the thoughts, everything that's going on in your mind, that's when you can see it. And I don't mean see it with your eyes. I mean, you'll experience it. So yeah, that's really what I'm trying to encourage people to kind of consider. But also, even if you never get enlightenment, or you don't even believe what I'm saying, having a clear mind will help you navigate your life better. Very simply. Like, if you're distracted by all kinds of things, if you're ever trying to do work or any kind of art or something like that, when you're distracted, that's when you start to make mistakes. And you start to, you have something that you want to accomplish, and then your mind gets distracted and you mess that up. So if you learn how to clear your mind, then you can accomplish whatever it is you're setting your mind on much easier. So I think there's really practical reasons to meditate, to clear your mind, and to learn how to focus your mind on whatever you're doing. So, but I think you can also start to really understand the world better when you meditate as well, because you start to make some of these connections. You start to realize that that other things are an extension of your own mind, and everything extends beyond your body. When you start to put down your sense of self, you start to feel that. And I think most of you nodded when I said if you've ever felt a connection to someone else or nature. So I think you understand what I'm alluding to, but having a clear mind will help you make those connections in a much better way. So any other questions? I don't know, I'm happy to stay and answer more questions. It's a little bit after 8, so I don't want to keep anybody here too much past what you were planning on. I do have something I could share if you're interested in hanging out for another minute. I have the poem I wrote about my teacher when he passed away. So I can read that if you got it. It'll only take like a minute. So I'll give you a little context. Shimgum Do is the martial art I practice. It means mind, sword, way. And my teacher was the creator of that art form. And he was also a Zen master and a sword master. Just because I use those words, I don't explain it in the poem, so a little context. And I called him, my teacher, I called him Sabunim, which means founding master. Shimgum Do, founding master, great Zen master, Wangguang Chengsi Kim. Sabunim jumps into the sky with the rising sun, swinging around his mirrored blade, slashing through the wind, spinning in the air like a sparkling gem with 10,000 eyes, reaching out with warm rays of starlight in 10,000 directions. While the light illuminates the mind sword way, he plants the seed of enlightenment in the heart of our galaxy, guiding us to stay on a circular path like the planets stay in orbit, to create a cycle of clear action, clear thinking, and a clear mind. We learn from him that practice, like water, is needed every day. It crystallizes the forms within our mind as we grow into a diamond, sprouting to life through our movements, blooming into a mirrored flower, reflecting a blossoming supernova before becoming an infinite blade of light that pierces a hole through the darkness of eternity, leaving only the hands of gravity holding the emptiness. As the blinding light swirls like tears around the eyes of the universe, each pupil remains holding the unseen sword of the mind, casting the shadow of an onyx seed, taking root far beyond sight. That was it. Any other questions? No? So I do have just a few announcements before we all go. I give these talks on the third Thursday of every month, so the date varies, but you're all invited back, and I would love to keep expanding the community, and I'd love to see you all again. So you can look ahead as far ahead as you like. I always try to keep it on the third Thursday, unless something catastrophic happens. I usually am able to do it. And I also am going to be holding the classes you mentioned. I have a writing class and an art class. It's more of a writing group and an art group. I'm not teaching. I teach a little bit of meditation. We'll meditate together a little bit, but then mainly just creating a little bit, sharing, and trying to, share techniques that we might use to help us through the creative process, and encouraging each other. I try to keep it just mostly positive. I don't really want it to be a harsh critiquing kind of atmosphere. Unless someone really wants that, it can be helpful, but you don't have to have any level of experience to come in. It's just more of a curiosity than anything. If you can talk to me about any of this stuff after class. I have an email list, so if you want to sign up and stay informed, I'll send little notifications about these classes, and I do a newsletter just with kind of general tidbits about what's going on here every month. I rely solely on donations to continue to offer these classes, so if you can afford to make a donation, there's a little jar in the back, or my Venmo, Cashapp kind of information. I appreciate anything you can do to support us here. And I also just want to invite all of you to hang out and chat and meet each other and meet me after this for as long as you want. And that's it for tonight. Thank you very much for coming.